Thank you so much that you joined us today. My guest is Omkar Salunke. He is our Senior Vice President for High Trust and ISO. Omkar, thank you for joining.
Hey, thank you, Kimberly, for inviting me. I think today we're going to speak about ISO. So yeah, excited.
Yes. So today our agenda is going to be covering ISO for MSPs. So we're going to be looking at what is ISO, what is assessed during an ISO audit. We'll look at who needs ISO 27001 certification, and then we'll touch on some best practices for achieving ISO. So we're excited. This is geared at ISO for MSPs themselves. So we have some MSPs that require ISO, and then we have MSPs that are assisting their customers with their ISO audits. So the idea is we want to empower you, the MSP, to be able to help your customer with their audit as well as complete yours. A little bit of housekeeping before I hand over to Omkar. First of all, there is a questions window on the right of your screen. Please feel free to enter all your questions in that questions window. We will be looking at those and answering them at the end. This session should be about 20 to 25 minutes. And then we have, a few minutes for Q&A at the end. So please feel free as we go to be just entering your questions in there. I'm excited to talk about the ControlCase Partner Portal. So this presentation, we have other presentations, we have checklists and all sorts of resources around audit and compliance in the ControlCase Partner Portal. Just please go on partner.controlcase.com and you'll be able to access our partner portal and get all those resources. I am going to be recording this and putting it on the partner portal as well. And if you would like to schedule a time to speak with me about ISO for yourself or for your customer, then please feel free to reach out for that. But that being said, I am excited to hand over to Omkar for our ISO for MSPs webinar. Thank you. Thank you so much, Omkar.
Thank you, Kimberly. I'm just quickly going to share my screen. We have a small presentation. Right. So thank you guys for joining. Like Kim said, this is going to be on our partner portal as well for you to see later. Today we're going to cover what is ISO 27001. We're going to cover what is assessed during an ISO 27001 audit. So you sort of, get a high level understanding of what you're entailing when you say, I want to undergo an ISO 27001 audit. Who needs the 27001 certification? And then, best practice for achieving compliance, right? Having said that, let's quickly move on to our next slide. So here we want to talk about what is ISO 27001. Now, ISO 27001 is a standard that is internationally recognized that provides specifications and requirements for an information security management system, ISMS. This is something that you're going to hear throughout our presentation. ISMS 27001 is geared towards providing requirements for an ISMS. ISO 27001 is part of a broader family of standards, the 27000 series of standards. These standards are developed to help organizations secure their information assets. So the premise is to secure your information assets. 27001 is specifically designed to help organizations establish, and maintain an effective framework, a framework of policies and procedures and its implementations to manage the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, the CIA triad, of their information. Now, this is done through a risk-based approach and a systematic approach. I would say the three prime objectives, right? A key takeaway from this slide, the three prime objectives of ISO 27001 would be to create and maintain an ISMS, an information security management system, have a very standard organized risk management approach to evaluate and mitigate your risks, and continual improvement of your ISMS, right? Now that we've said ISMS for so long, I just want to quickly give you an overview of what an ISMS is. An ISMS is a systematic approach to manage sensitive information that your company has so that it's secure, right? It includes people, processes, and even IT systems by applying a risk management process. The core or the most important goal of an ISMS, like we said, is to ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of an organization's information assets. This involves protecting personal data, your employee details, intellectual property, and even, if you're collecting information from your customers, all right, safeguarding that information, right? It could be covered information, sensitive information, or could be just their information, right? Just protecting all of this information. Moving on, I quickly want to talk about ISO 27001 and ISO 27002, because every time you hear ISO 27001, you would probably also hear 27002. So I just wanted to give you the key difference and the relation of both these standards. So ISO 27001 is a central framework, right, that is related to information security management systems. ISO 27002 is a supplementary or a best practice guideline standard which allows you to sort of understand how to implement security controls for the ISO 27001 standard, right? So it's basically hand in hand. uh, 27001 not only lists just security controls, it also covers all aspects, of the ISMS. 27002 is basically just addressing security controls. So all security controls that are listed in 27001, 27002 will give you guidelines on how to implement those in your organization. Now, 27001 is a certification. So an MSP or your client can get certified towards this standard by a certification body like ControlCase. ISO 27002, however, is not a certification, right? It is something you adapt to meet 27001 requirements. Now, what is assessed during an ISO 27001 audit? I'm going to cover a couple of aspects here. One is what the standard entails, and quickly, the overall process of certification, right? So ISO 27001 is divided majorly into two sections: clauses and annexures. Okay. Clauses outline the requirements of establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving your ISMS. Right? It provides you a systematic approach and framework for the management system. And annexures are basically your security controls. Right? Both of these have to be met to undergo a successful ISO audit. Now, earlier, ISO 27001 annexures, there were 114 controls divided into 14 categories. The latest version of ISO 27001, which is ISO 27001 2022, has 4 high-level domains and 93 security controls. So they merged a few controls to basically, bring it to 93. They've also added a few, but we won't go in that detail. We'll talk about the high-level domains, right? So these 93 controls are divided into 4 domains: organizational controls, people controls, physical, and technological controls. Right? I just want to give you sort of a high-level example of each of this. Organizational controls typically, include controls for management responsibilities, documenting your operating procedures, even access control, organization-wide access control. These are covered under organizational controls. People controls cover, awareness trainings. When a new employee joins, screening of your or background check of your employees, disciplinary process that your HR might have in place. All of these controls are tested under people controls. Technological controls are, for example, endpoint security, encryption, network security. All these technical controls are under your technological controls. And physical control, right? It's very straightforward: securing your offices or other facilities that are in scope, uh, physical storage of your files, tapes, controls to secure these, equipment maintenance if you have any equipment, right? All of these are covered under physical controls. Moving on, how often do you need ISO 27001? Right? So ISO 27001 is a 3-year certificate, right? So once you get certified, your certificate is valid for 3 years. The catch is every year you have to do a surveillance audit. We will look at what the first year and the 2 year and year 3 look like in the next slide. But just to give you a complete picture, it's a 3-year certification where you're required to perform surveillance audits in year 2 and year 3. Now, this slide only talks about year 1, right? So I'm going to take some time here. So ControlCase has, added these 3 phases that basically bring your year 1 all together in one path. Phase 1 is, you've implemented ISMS in your environment. You've done all the necessary steps. Now you think, hey, you know what? Before I go for audit, I want to ensure that, whatever I've done is correct. So there is a concept called pre-assessment where ControlCase will, ensure all your policy and procedures are there, evaluate them against the standard, look at your implementation, sort of do a gap analysis against the standard for your ISMS, right? And tell you what these gaps. Now you have a clear picture in front of you on what you need to do before you need to get to a stage 1 audit, right? Once you've fixed all of these gaps, you move to the stage 1 and stage 2 audit. Now this is your year 1 audit. It's divided into 2 parts, stage 1 and stage 2. Stage 1 only looks at your documentation, policy, procedures, other documentation, and we check if it's in line with the standard, right? So that's your stage 1 audit. Once the stage 1 audit is complete, if there are any areas of concerns, you will be notified by your auditor saying, okay, these are your areas of concern that you need to fix, and then do your stage 2 audit. Once you've done that, you move to the stage 1, stage 2 audit, where your implementation will be checked. Once you've undergone this audit successfully, you will receive an ISO 27001 certificate, right? You will also receive a report and approval letter. You'll receive a web seal that you can basically use on your website to show that you're ISO 27001 compliant and all that good stuff, right? But the primary deliverable would be an ISO 27001 certificate. This certificate will clearly list, what was in scope, what facilities were in scope, and so on. Now, year 2 and 3, like we said, are surveillance audits. You can consider these as sort of interim assessments or mini audits, right? Uh, Here, we don't look at all those annexures and all those clauses. It's done on a sampling basis. If you have multiple sites, right? If you have, let's say, 5 or 10 sites, these sites are also sampled. Not all sites are visited. So it's a very small assessment. You can consider about 1/3 of the days that are spent on an stage 1 plus stage 2 audit are spent on a surveillance, right? These are not full system audits. Like I said, only sampling based check is done just to ensure that you're still good, you're in good recommendation, and you're in good continuation of the certification. At the end of the surveillance audit, you will receive a surveillance report. Uh, until and unless there are no changes to your systems, a new certificate will not be issued. But let's say you've added a new office location or a facility during your surveillance audit, you may get a new certificate as well. Okay, so this is the surveillance audit. Now, I want to talk about this concept of compliance versus certification. You have developed an ISMS in your environment, right? And you've gone through the controls yourself, and everything's in place. At this point, you can say your organization is ISO 27001 compliant, right? You meet the standard. You basically have developed your framework as per the standard. It does not mean you're certified. For you to be called an ISO 27001 certified organization, you have to undergo the ISO 27001 audits that we just spoke about. ControlCase is a certifying body that can perform these audits, a third party auditor that can perform these audits for you and provide you this certification. So, as you can see here, the auditors are known as certification. ControlCase is a certification body, and we have auditors who come and audit against your ISMS. Once you've done that, then you can see your ISO 27001 certified. Now, who needs an ISO 27001 certification? Now, the ISO 27001 certification is designed to be applicable to any organization, regardless of its size or type, nature, business, right? It is flexible in nature, so it basically adds as a valuable standard for a lot of companies across various industries who are looking to manage their information security risks. Right? As we said, it gives a very systematic approach. A few examples would be, if you're an organization handling sensitive information, then, you would need this certification. If you're a managed service provider, a cloud service provider, or if you're an organization in a public sector, right, this is an internationally recognized standard. So you could use this. Uh, you know, there are organizations who don't need to do this, but want to gain competitive advantage, or they want to improve their management posture. Such organizations also undergo ISO 27001 certification. And then, if let's say your stakeholders, maybe your board of directors or your customers have requested, an ISO 27001 certification, then you would want to undergo this certification. Now we want to talk about best practices for achieving ISO 27001 compliance. Okay, this we can basically, have an entire day just talking about best practices. But what I want to do is sort of, give you a takeaway from this presentation to think about the top three things you want to immediately do to start your ISO 27001 compliance journey, right? So as an ISO 27001 implementer, these are the top three things that come to my mind that, you want to take a look at. First, you want to buy the ISO 27001 standard. It's easily available on the internet. You want to go through it with your team, familiarize yourself with the standard. This will give you an opportunity to define your scope and your ISMS boundaries, right? Define what is going to be entailed in your ISMS, because this is your decision, right? The standard doesn't dictate what should be in scope. It is completely your decision on how you want to scope your ISMS. So you do that. Second, this is where we have seen, as certification bodies, a lot of disconnect is you have this requirement, you ensure you have your management buy-in, right? So you conduct an awareness session with them saying, hey, we are required to undergo an ISO 27001 audit, or, we want to be compliant to ISO 27001. There's going to be few things that you have to do as management, but we need your blessings as well. So to ensure that, you get the right necessary support and resources. So management buying would be the second most important step. And then the third is to ensure that, you develop all your policy procedures in line with 27001, and then, do all the implementation that you have said in your policy procedures. So these are the top three things I would say that you need to keep in mind to begin your journey. Of course, like I said, and like Kimberly mentioned, ControlCase absolutely have a discussion with you on all of these things separately. In the interest of time, I thought we'd just focus on the top three. With that, that is all I wanted to cover today. I invite Kimberly back on the screen, and Kimberly, we can take questions.
Thank you. If you are still uploading your question, please, there is a questions window. So please upload your question. I see we have a couple of questions in there already. So first question is, how long does an ISO assessment typically take?
So an ISO assessment typically would take about 3 to 6 months, right from the pre-assessment to getting your stage 1 and stage 2 audit done. Uh, it depends on how quickly you can turn around things, how quickly you get ready for the audit. So about 3 to 6 months, I would say. Between the stage 1 and stage 2 audit, there's a maximum of 90 days. So once you undergo in stage 1 audit, you have to close your AOCs, and you have to sort of, undergo the stage 2 audit within 90 days. So that's a fixed period that the body tells you to do your audits in. But overall, we've seen about 3 to 6 months right from pre-assessment to a stage 2 audit.
Another question we have is, what is the average cost of the pre-assessment phase? So cost is depending on scope. So, maybe reach out to me. We'll talk about locations, number of people in the company. Cost is depending on scope. So I'm happy to guide you on that. But then, Omkar, talk about pre-assessment versus the audit, and let's answer that question.
Sure. So a pre-assessment is basically, sort of, like I said, a gap assessment, right? So you have developed your ISMS inter environment. Now you want to know, hey, before I go to the audit, I want to sort of see where I stand, so that if something has to be fixed, I can fix it, right? So that's a pre-assessment where we go through all the annexes or the courses against your scope and the standard and sort of determine, uh, give you all the gaps, right? Now, it's up to you on how you're going to fix those gaps and be ready. There's no definite time for you to, fix these gaps in because it's a pre-assessment. Between stage one and stage two, there's 90 days, but between pre-assessment and stage one, there's no definitive gap. You can take as much as you need. No problem.
Another question is, what takes the most time to prepare in the ISMS?
That's a very, very good question, I'd say. So as we said earlier, ISMS is a framework based on policy and procedures. Building your policy procedure apex document, what that means is a list of all your policies and procedures, and building those policy procedures, getting approval from your management. That is one thing that is, takes the most amount of time I've seen, because that puts everything in perspective, right? Your policy procedures. So I'd say that's the most important thing.
What is the relationship between ISO 27001 and CMMC?
So there would be a few guidelines within ISO 27001 that meet CMMC requirements. However, CMMC is altogether different.
A different framework.
Yeah.
And I can comment on this as well a little bit. So CMMC is designed to be very stringent. And obviously, there's a lot of things that are happening with the framework where it hasn't been finalized. But another thing that CMMC is they want you to be completely compliant with that requirement. You know how in some frameworks you're able to have compensating controls or say that you meet the spirit of the stuff. With CMMC, it's very stringent. It's actually its own kind of beast. So where you have to make sure that you actually meet the requirements of all of the controls, and that's all of them, where some of these other frameworks, it's not like all of them. So CMMC, we have a recording on our partner portal that we did for CMMC. We have some checklists around CMMC, partner.controlcase.com. You can log in and just get some resources, but feel free to send me some questions on that. And then I think we have one last question. Once you're certified and have done a 3-year cycle, do you have to do stage 1 and stage 2 again?
No, that's a very good question. So very first time that you do an ISMS audit, you have to do stage 1, stage 2. Once you've done that, there's no stage 1, stage 2 again. So after you complete your 3-year cycle, it's called a recertification audit. It basically encompasses stage 1 and stage 2 together. Everything's done at the same time, but you don't have the liberty to sort of, just do your policy procedures, wait for 90 days and do, it's all together. And, stage 1, stage 2 is just the very first time. That's it.
Okay. And that's all our questions. As I said, some of these questions come up after the webinar. Please feel free to just email them to me. My name is Kimberly Simon. My email is ksimon@controlcase.com. Omkar leads our ISO practice. So if you need to reach him, send me the questions and I'll make sure that I get the answers for you. A lot of resources, including this webinar plus some checklists, are in partner.controlcase.com. Sign up to our portal, get free resources, checklists for your audits, and let me know if you need anything. Thank you so much for your time today. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
The ControlCase self-assessment tool enables anyone to evaluate readiness and receive certification proposals for key frameworks like CMMC, SOC 2, ISO 27001, and PCI DSS in under 5 minutes, even if you're not an MSP or TSP. With over 20 years of experience in compliance services, and after working with hundreds of unique customers, we've simplified the readiness and proposal process to something that can be completed in just minutes. No more emails back and forth. Whether for your organization or for your client's compliance needs, get audit ready fast with ControlCase. The questionnaire is short and user-friendly and can be answered without needing to track down complex evidence. Just complete the series of simple, self-guided, multiple-choice questions and receive an instant, customized compliance readiness report with a detailed audit or certification proposal perfectly tailored to your needs. This is an ideal tool to find a clearer path to achieving compliance benchmark the security posture for you or your clients, or bring compliance as a service into conversation with technology providers. And for MSPs, eliminate third-party auditor delays and provide more value to compliance-conscious clients. Then, when you're ready to move forward, our all-in-one partnership approach makes compliance simple and affordable. Generate your CMMC readiness or compliance proposal in just minutes with a free self-assessment tool from ControlCase today.